Part 1, Chapter 5. Human reasoning has no explanation for the mind. Dreadful. No explanation from science, philosophy, or religion puts the mind-body problem to rest. So where do we turn for the solution? Human reasoning has been searching relentlessly, and no explanation for consciousness and mind is forthcoming. Not even close. We won't even wonder about an explanation of why the mind even exists. Stardust is the composition of our body. Imagine that. Where did the original stardust come from? No explanation. What about the origin of the fine-tuning for that stardust to become a life-supporting planet called Earth? No explanation. Then the inert minerals transformed into life. Wow, no explanation. And then, the most significant leap in history, living matter developed ethereal consciousness and mind. No explanation. That's an awful lot of no explanation from enlightened scientific, philosophical, and religious reasoning of 21st century progressive humanity. Thankfully, we can count on science to explain material matters, just as we can look to behavioral science to describe human experiences. But no explanation is prevalent, and I wrote in Part 5 of Audit of Humankind how humans reason about this cacophonic collapse of communication and the presence of ironic science. We must search for another source for profound, coherent explanations of the mind-body problem. Theology. The approach involves none of the methods above. No philosophy, science, or religion. So what's left? The basis for further discussion is theology, one field we have not discussed yet. Some might think this is akin to religion, but the two have a night and day difference. So hopefully, let's explore this alternative option with an open mind. The first point to make is a clarification of the term. Let's look at the word theology with its two distinct parts. Theo means God, with a capital or small g. Right away, we run into a thorny issue, the existence or not of some higher power. Then, if we agree there is one, the nature of this higher power. If we took a poll, we'd get every idea under the sun, and then some. A factor of belief comes assuredly into play, an immensely personal feeling that characterizes each of us. As the author of this book, I want to respect your beliefs about God, whether it be a small or capital G, science, religion, or any other concept or lack thereof. However, we took a step in the direction of some higher power when we decided that none of the principal ways humankind reasons, philosophy, science, and religion, is fully working. Theology means we continue in the direction of a higher power, fully aware that we don't know if this God even exists, and that this power has yet to be defined. The meaning of logi is, from a Google definition, we read, combining form, suffix, logi, and suffix, ology. Firstly, denoting a subject of study or interest, like psychology. Secondly, indicating a characteristic of speech or language, for instance, eulogy. And thirdly, denoting a type of discourse, trilogy. Logi involves the study of, or language and discourse around a particular subject. Here, gods or God. The explanation is going a step further here, because within the concept of logi and logo, we find a similar English word, logic. Late Middle English, via Old French, logique, and late Latin, logica, from Greek logike, techne, art of reason. From logos, word, reason. Google definition. Middle English logique, from Anglo-French, from Latin logica, from Greek logike, from feminine of logikos, of reason, from logos, reason. Merriam-Webster definition. Merriam goes on to add this. First, a proper or reasonable way of thinking about something. Sound reasoning. There's no logic in what you said. And second, a science that deals with the rules and processes used in sound thinking and reasoning. When we consider these concepts, we define theology as the study of words related to God, not just any words, but rather sound, reasoned, logical ones. The explanation is not humankind's words about a deity. That's what Wikipedia and the science of theology do. The explanation is about the sound, reasoned words of God. What does God have to say? What is His reasoning? Why does He want peace and prosperity? It's only the source that can give real, reliable answers. For the explanation, theology refers to the source's words. The source is a God with a small or capital G. Since it's generally associated with religion and its originator, it comes with a capital G. I don't expect non-believers to accept the capital G, or even to believe that God has or could transmit the answers to the fundamental questions of life. What the explanation suggests. You've listened to all the no explanations humankind has to offer about deity, as well as consciousness and mind. Why not give an ear to what deity has to declare to humanity? We're embarking on a fabulous story, some would say fabulation, about a spiritual God and a physical universe, earth and humankind. Is there divine logic, sound reasonable words, to explain not just the visible, but also the invisible? A complete explanation of the brain, consciousness, mind, humankind, earth, and the universe. Not only the what and how, but especially the why. Coherent completeness. You've heard of the grand unifying theory, gut, and the theory of everything, toe. They unify all the known physical forces governing our universe into one simple mathematical equation. Watch this informative video by Dr. Don Lincoln from the Fermilab, the U.S. National Laboratory specializing in high-energy particle physics, to see the details and realize we aren't close to finding that answer. The goal of the explanation is obviously not on that scientific level, but on a universal humankind mental and spiritual one. So, for now, I'll equate the spiritual level to the psychic or mental and leave open the possibility that other levels might not be readily visible to humankind. This gut, as scientists refer to it, see Inventory of the Universe, Chapter 1, or coherent completeness, as I will call it, is a unique concept. Coherent completeness is the all-englobing everything. Here are a few made-up words to try and describe this idea. It's monotheology, monoview, monomind, monotruth. Coherent completeness unifies into one complete puzzle, a cohesive view of all the visible and invisible pieces. It renders a clear image of the why, how, and what of the universe and humankind. That is a tall order. And I hear one of the critical counter-arguments. The religious-minded population who believe in a higher power often point out, the author, God, is mysterious. He's not a man. How can you expect to understand the mind of God? Or another argument is that humans are just supposed to do our best and leave the rest to Him. He knows our hearts and will do what He has to do. There are 1001 other reasonings that drive us away from even thinking we can sound the mind of God. Well, that is the task the explanation has set before itself, to show how to reach and teach coherent completeness. Now, back to a more profound definition of theology. Theology understands the mind and concepts of the originator. It is the all-encompassing why, the foundational motivation of the source compared to the what and how of religion. Theology goes deep into the mind and purpose of the author and answers the why questions. Whenever the author thinks, says, or does something, there's a reason. He does nothing haphazardly. There is motivation, rationale, and an explanation behind each move. Theology, the logical reasoning of God, the source, will lead us to coherent completeness. Who is the author of the explanation? In conclusion to this short section on theology, expanded in Origin of the Universe, I'd like to tell you about my dilemma when the idea of writing these books first germinated. First, what was I going to name it? Initially, it was to be one book, not a series. And the second question, as the author, how should I present my name? Maybe I should use a pseudonym. But, as you can see, I decided against the latter simply because the teaching and videos accompanying the books would reveal my identity anyway. I'm just as human as any person, be they a leader, philosopher, scientist, or religionist. My ideas are just as bad as anyone else's on this humongous subject of coherent completeness. So what's my relationship with this plan? I wanted the title of this book series to reflect that clearly. The explanation with Sam Kneller. It looks like a minor detail, with, but it's not. Most titles would state a book title by, with the author's name. I'm explicitly avoiding the by to show that I'm not the author of the explanation as such. All I'm doing is expressing the explanation in different terms. I'm exposing it in a way to make it available to a broader audience. This is the explanation with Sam Kneller. I'm just tagging along for its exposition. In absolutely no way am I the author of the plan of coherent completeness. I'm a dummy when it comes to that. Your appreciation of, or argumentation with, the program of coherent completeness is not an issue to take up with Sam Kneller. That's why I will not debate, quarrel, or squabble about this plan. I will try to explain, but if you have a problem with it, you need to take it up with the real author. As I stated in Chapter 1, Higher Power or Not, I wrote 3 books, Inventory of the Universe, Audit of the Universe, and Audit of Humankind, and the first chapters of Origin of the Universe, summarized at the beginning of this book, Mind-Body Problem Solved, as an introduction to understanding the explanation and why we must delve into theology. We're almost there, but to explore the divine, we must first determine where to find these sound reason words related to gods or God.